Wide Ocean Big Jacket is a tight, concise narrative adventure detailing the trials and tribulations of growing up and staying grown up. It is a brilliant work, featuring some beautiful writing imbued with an essential humanity. Warm, funny, heartbreaking. It's a profound experience, and it was inevitable that any follow-up was going to be a hard sell. Developer Turnfollow's latest release, Before the Green Moon, felt like it came out of nowhere. My first encounter with the game was through a shared tweet the day before launch, and I was immediately on board with the premise. No questions asked. I barely glanced at the trailer, so eager I was to dive in and see what new narrative delights they had to offer. And it's kind of brilliant, but in a drastically different way to Wide Ocean Big Jacket. It's the sort of brilliant that takes a while to get used to, drawing on decades-old design idioms and fitting more patiently into a genre mold than its older sibling. But it's through the expectations brought on by those genre conventions that the game gets to surprise you almost from minute one, with an experience that proves that old dogs do indeed have new tricks. Pitched as a science fiction farming/life simulation game set in a small community at the base of a space elevator, the game puts you in the shoes of a self-assembled avatar, newly arrived in a small town built around this transport hub. For reasons that will eventually be revealed, your ultimate goal is to travel into space, but one thing stands in your way: a ticket booth with an astronomical price point. With nothing but your wits about you, the only way to make money is to get farming, get scavenging, and in the in-between, live. Good morning, hustlers. Before the Green Moon's core gameplay loop will be instantly familiar to anyone who's played a Harvest Moon game, or one of the Legacy series' many contenders. You wake up, tend to your crops, inevitably knacker yourself doing so until you start upgrading your equipment. A touch of foraging for apples and mushrooms in the forest in the afternoon, then the rest of the day is dedicated to mooching around town, enjoying some tasty treats at the local mess, and forming familial bonds that will stay with you your entire life. It's uncomplicated but busy. Time moves at such a phenomenal pace that the brevity of all your actions, the small scope of the world and the people within it, becomes appreciated rather than lamented. And through that inevitable repetition, you come to appreciate all the things that Before the Green Moon does differently. Like how the passage of time is not just some abstract approximation designed to navigate the player's experience, but an explicit reality of this alien world. Days zip past, seasons barely last a week, but people still age the same. The result isn't just a linguistic anomaly, however. 60 isn't just the new 25. There's a precise and deliberate effect that this has on how the world works that's a little bit too subtle to properly showcase with just words and video footage. It's embedded in the vibes of the place, in the way residents engage with one another as though the urgencies of a modern world are long behind them. This goes hand in hand with the fact that commerce has a distinctly inhuman tone. Most of your sales and purchases are done via vending machines and automated deposit lockers. Goods provided by whom and cash going to whom you don't really know, although an educated guess can easily be made. There are a couple of manned markets. One is a periodic junk shop set up by someone very likely sharing your ambitions, selling art, furniture, electronics and seeds. And then there's a more dedicated seed store run by your neighbour and botanist extraordinaire, Pony. The money going that direction seems to be to further her research rather than building a monarchical lifestyle. That seems to be the extent of this place's transactional culture. Everyone seems to have a job, but they all seem driven by something other than their own personal success. The town's cook refuses to sell his services at all, seeing his endeavours as for the benefit of the community, a personal challenge of how many delicious morsels they can craft with what little can be scavenged around them. The relationship the town has with commerce is strained. There's a strong sense that it is unwanted, and that its necessity at all in place of a fairer, equitable and just system is just down to the elephant in the room. Before the Green Moon shows us a future that contains the last choked roar of a capitalist structure, one that is slowly but surely evaporating from the earth, because at the center of everything, this colossal space elevator is symptomatic of a toxic presence that permeates even when its instigators are long gone. a violent spike jammed into the ribcage of this planet, precisely missing those vital organs but never really allowing the wound to properly heal. The residents all speak of the moon being the destination of the future, where the best and brightest minds are collaborating to build a better world, but it's never really that clear who that world is for. Communication is expensive and time-consuming. One can only hope that when the messages of loved ones do come through, that there is honesty in their hearts. That your motivation to make money is almost solely for the purpose of building up funds for your ticket to the moon further questions the benevolence of this whole endeavour. Why is the cost of entry a financial metric and not a skill value? And what's going to happen to you when you get there? And this is all before we even get to the game's most unique feature, the assholes from the moon. Periodically, the moon elevator descends, and for a brief time your town is inundated with visitors. You can't talk to them, you can only clean up after them, and by Christ can they produce a lot of refuse. This is one of those weird diegetic world-building moments you find yourself engaging with throughout the game. A choice to stop and tidy up the never-ending deluge of loose cans, jugs, and assorted miscellanea. This detritus is present throughout, but expanded to gargantuan proportions when receiving these lunar visitors. The one clear-cut clue that what awaits you up there is more of the same bullshit, even if that alone is not enough to dissuade you from trying. It's very telling that these visitors have no mechanical purpose. Their strange presence unnerves. They are no real barrier to you achieving any of your goals, but neither do they inspire anything in you. A horde of faceless figures, puppets brought to life to effect a sense of presence on this far-away emerald orb. I think one of the game's greatest strengths here is that it refuses to mechanize anything bar the bare essentials. One of the big issues with modern Harvest Moon clones, Stardew Valley in particular, is that as much as I admire what they have to offer the player, everything is designed to fit into this ideology that actions must always benefit the player, including the framing of relationships as this shallow transactional interaction. I'll admit that I've not really played the original Harvest Moon, and maybe there's some design purity to be found there, but to me it just seems like there is no room for other things to simply exist. In Before the Green Moon, there is, and if nothing else, it frees the player's mind to stop and think about the implications of this world to a more thoughtful degree. You can make up your own mind about what kind of relationship you have with the residents of this town, independent of any boon or detriment to your progress. It may be foolish to try to sell you a game on what it doesn't have rather than what it does, but over the dozen or so hours I played, each of these very precise and deliberate design decisions drew me deeper and deeper in, kept me pursuing that core gameplay loop further and further. Just one more day, just one more cycle, every encounter feeling bespoke, like a complete iteration of an idea brought to life in such a wonderfully lo-fi way. It was inevitable that I would fall hopelessly in love with this game. What Before the Green Moon does will not set your world on fire. It's not a revolutionary experience, some brilliant flash-in-the-pan idea executed to an almost perfect degree. Sometimes it feels constrained by the limitations of its world, that there are only about 6 people to interact with throughout, and that saving your funds to leave terra firma for something more abstract is built solely around an unflinching and unevolved core gameplay loop might grate on some players. This kind of farming, as I imagine is true in the real world, is a boring necessity, an endless cyclical slog built around exploitation and dehumanizing the producers of the world. That all this game centers around essentially a ghost town, one kept on life support and denied the sweet release of death for its essential role as an intergalactic airport, informs the true value of these limitations. Of course there are only 6 people in this town. The only people left are those who cannot really function well in quote-unquote normal society. Of course there isn't a big economy. The only financial motivators left are the ones that service the needs of the people above. Time is endless. Relationships are transient. We are all living out our days on this dying rock, desperate to find some semblance of meaning in the harrowed toil of our lives. As much as I normally despise this argument, that's the point, is an essential piece of this puzzle, the central thesis of Before the Green Moon. a land where history and culture go to die, where the past is a dead banana tree, the future an ever-expanding sequence of numbers, and as much as I found the constant looping busy work to be the grind it was always intended to be, when I finally made my way past that ticket booth, when I finally began my ascension to this better place, I couldn't help but look back with a melancholic fondness for my time in the dirt. This place was home, but for a while. May it forever know peace.